it was also a terrifying prospect. A tilt table is like a bed with heavy straps. I was placed on a board, painstakingly moved to the tilt table, and strapped in. My equilibrium had been reset to the horizontal level. The tilt table was going to give my equilibrium a rude reminder about the forces of gravity. I was warned in advance that this experience typically caused nausea. It didn't make sense to me. They were only going to tilt me up a little bit. It should be no big deal, right? The nurse told me the bed would be tilted only 10 degrees up, but for a person who'd spent almost a month lying flat, the motion felt like a gyroscopic ride at Six Flags over Texas. After the tilting began, and I was locked into position, I had only one thing to say. Better get a bucket. Flashbacks and dreams. 3 months in a hospital is probably a bit like being in prison. Sure, I had visitors, but they could come and go freely. I was confined to one bed in one room. Like others confined to cells, I had access to books and, after a few weeks, was able to read. And read. Any genre would do. I read some fiction, nonfiction, magazines, and even the fine print on the IV bags. Sometimes I read to distract my mind. Other times, especially toward the end of my incarceration, I read to get back on track with the life goals Cecilia and I were clinging to. I began to wonder about what I'd be able to do with my life after leaving the hospital. I had never contemplated being in such a situation. I traced back over my life, thinking and pondering where I had been and what I had done, and tried to piece together some pathway forward. In elementary and middle school, participating in activities like Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and sports had a big impact on me. I learned the value of goals, teamwork, and achievement. Cecilia reminded me, and ribbed me, about a tale from when I was in first grade at Pinewood Park Elementary School in Longview, Texas. Every year around Christmas, each classroom would vote for the king and queen of the class, and in first grade, I was voted the king. The simple voting machines would have been the envy of Broward County, Florida. Every student competing for the titles had a jar with their name on it, and voting classmates put pennies in the jar of their pick for king and queen. I ended the election cycle with the most pennies. I still credit my mom for stuffing the ballot. Or did she? I never knew. The first time I formally ran for an office was in 6th grade at Judson Junior High. I ran for treasurer. A friend and I made campaign posters and placed them all over the school. I lost that race to an establishment 8th grader. When I was in high school, seniors were required to take a government class. One of the exercises was to hold a mock trial. Some students got to be lawyers, others were witnesses, jurors, and judges. I played the role of a lawyer, which was one of the experiences that stimulated my interest in law. This matched another related interest of mine in high school: history. I was fascinated with our nation's history, and was one of the few students who lettered in both sports and academics. To receive an academic letter, you had to have the highest score combined from grades and a special subject test. I was the student who received the letter sweater for history. Yes, an academic letter sweater is not exactly the kind of thing a teen wears around the neighborhood. It never left my closet. Cecilia reminded me that it was still in the closet. Most college kids go through the exploratory process of finding out what interests them. They move away from home for the first time and try to figure out who they are. I was no different. The first major I signed up for in college was political science, pre-law. But after 2 years on that track, my practical side took over. I moved into a major that offered multiple career pathways: business. I graduated from the University of Texas with a finance degree. It turned out that my initial instincts were right, and I returned to the law pathway I had initially embarked on. In law school, just as in college, different students choose different pathways. Some students focus on business law, others on international,